Hey guys, the end of this video is having a volume issue that I'm not quite sure how to fix right now. All of the content is there, however it's very hard to hear. Sorry about that, and I'll get it right on the next one. Welcome back everybody to our latest episode. Glad to have you all back. I know recently we've been talking about Braden's Evo and the project that Braden and I have going on together, which is the Silver Civic. But today we're going to be talking about my personal Civic and a project I have going on with my dad. My Civic is a 2000 Civic SI that has already been modified quite a bit, but none of that's been documented on this channel. So we're going to kind of go over that, where it came from, and a lot of the parts are still laying around other than what I've sold. And then the project I have going on with my dad is a 1990 Nissan 300ZX twin turbo. Today's agenda on this video is just going to be more documentation. Where did these cars come from? Where are they headed? What's the story behind them? Kind of get everybody caught up on them, because the next few videos after this will be them being built and them being driven. Sadly today, it's winter in Ohio. Even though it's not snowy, it's wet and nasty, gross, and it's January in Ohio. But we'll get these cars up and running soon enough and have some good footage on them running, doing burnouts, you name it. But right now, sadly, this will be kind of a boring documentation video. But that being said, I'm almost to the shop to meet Braden, and we'll pick it up from there. This is my personal car. A lot of people know about this car. Not as many as I guess it would seem, but this is a 2000 Civic SI. It started out, we got it from Detroit. It had 7 bullet holes in the windshield. One of the bullets is buried in the driver's headrest. I don't think anybody was killed in it. I hope not. I don't know a lot about the story of this car before that point. So we get this car. I had it NA for a couple years right out of high school. I didn't do a lot to it. Intake, exhaust, typical kid stuff, you know, stereo, got to get those beats. After that, I put an eBay turbo kit on it just as like a starter, right? And it made decent power, but I tuned it myself and didn't blow it up, but it probably made, I don't know, 230 wheel or something. It was fast, but it wasn't killer. So then later on, I built the engine, which we'll get to all that. This is this current build that's been torn down. Built the engine, and I put a whole set turbo out of a 07 Cummins, right, Braden? 07. Mm-hmm. So I put a turbo out of an 07 Cummins 5.9 on it, and I took it to Crucial Performance, and they tuned it, and it made 601 wheel horsepower and 366 foot-pounds at 30 psi on E85. And that was on the original true 1.6 liter stock sleeve block. So I enjoyed that for 2 years, I think. I drove around on it, and then one day, just the same as the last, where I started with an oil change and ended up with the engine torn down on the bench, we've moved on to the next build. So the idea with this car moving forward is, as you can see in here, this dash is completely missing. I took all the wiring out. I do a lot of mil-spec wiring on my own. I've taken a lot of training on how to build mil-spec harnesses, contra-wound cables. So this whole car is going to be wired with 22 gauge wire. And the idea behind that is to keep the cables as small as possible and very light. So I'm going to be going way overboard with building the cabling for this car, and I'll show some of that in a later video, some of the wiring aspect of it, but that's why everything's gutted. So for that wiring, I have to get all of the electronics first. I got to get the engine with all of its electronics on it. I got to get my fuel pumps. I got to get whatever lights I'm going to run, whatever sensors I'm going to run on the chassis, all that stuff. Get it all in the car so then I can start planning the wiring. So I got to spend a lot of money first. But coming over here, we'll start with the block. This is a true B16A2. If anybody doesn't believe it, it's right there. It's the original one from the car. This engine made 601 horsepower, 366 foot-pounds. Those are stock sleeves. I just had the deck closed by CSS. This is one of the coolest and best things I think you can do to an engine to maintain your stock sleeves. You don't have to worry about them sinking. You don't have to worry about them shifting. They don't leak. So I think it is superior to sleeves for anything that's making less than 1,000 horsepower. But if you're planning to go for big power, stock sleeves are just eventually going to crack. So this block sadly, I think has run its course in the car. I really wanted to stay 1.6 liter and continue on making big power on the smallest 4-cylinder dual cam that Honda's ever made, but well, in that generation, not anymore. I think my goals have gone beyond what a 1.6 liter can deliver at this point. So for the last build, I mean, you can just see parts of it laying everywhere. I had good parts in here, you know, genuine tile blow-off valves. Manly, these are just Manly H-beams, they're not Turbo Toughs, with ARP bolts and CP pistons. So this engine was stock compression, 10.3 to 1 when it was all put together and running. I had a coil on plug kit, so the distributor was just the sensors at that point, engine position sensors, stock crank, stock head cast. I did clean up a little bit of the casting flash in the ports. I didn't do any work to the combustion chambers, and I didn't do any actual porting. I just kind of cleaned up the flash, so it flowed nice, but I never actually put it on a flow bench. Still had VTEC. It had GSR cams in it, and an Edelbrock manifold with a 74 millimeter skunk 2 throttle body. And then I had a fully custom fuel system built in it, so I built everything start to finish, even the fuel pump hanger, which I'll throw a couple pictures of that up in this video as well, because it was a pretty cool project I was pretty proud of. The transmission, oh yeah, there's your proof. 601 horsepower, 366 foot-pounds, and that was at 30 psi. So pretty proud of that, considering I went into it expecting 390, and Braden was there for that one. It was pretty wild. We have an M factory differential in here. All the gears are in a box over there, so I'm not going to get those out right now, but they were factory gears. I ran all sorts of gear combos in this thing, man. I had GSR 1 through 4 with an LS 5th. I had GSR 1 through 5. I've had SI 1 through 5. I've had SI 2, 3, 4, 5. SI 3, 4, 5 and GSR 1, 2. I've had all sorts of different gear combos in this thing, and no matter what, it always destroyed 4th gear. So I tried to clean up the inside of the trans to get better oil to the gears and make sure that they had sufficient cooling and sufficient lubrication, but it just constantly blew up. So sadly, this I think has run its course as well. I have not had as good a luck as other people with it, and I'm just over it. So I don't know if the transmission I'm moving to is any more reliable, but I'm going to try to spend the money to make sure that it is. And then everything over here is just stuff I've taken out of the car. There's the rear diffuser, which is kind of more of a looks thing, but I did end up making it functional. And then there's just some interior parts. And then as far as the engine bay goes, this is the remainder of the fuel system in here. Aeromotive, fuel pressure regulator, and then custom built JAG-ZAN lines all the way around. This was what made me take the engine out of the car. I thought I blew up the final drive, and it turns out I broke this drive shaft right here, and I couldn't wiggle the shaft around, so I didn't think it was broken, but it turns out it was. So I took the whole engine out of the car, tore the trans apart, thinking I was going to find a broken final drive, and I didn't. So, but I'm kind of glad I did, because the final drive was cracked all the way around, and it was an M factory. So as far as the rest of the car goes, that's pretty much it for it. I mean, I hit a deer one time. Everybody asked me a lot of front end's carbon, what made me want to do that. I hit a deer right here, smashed the whole front corner of this car, and then it was cheaper to put a carbon front end on it. So as far as that goes, that's pretty much it for where this car came from and where it was right before I took it apart. However, this time around, I think, and I'm still torn on this, but I think I'm going to go K series. I don't know if I'm going to go K24, K20, and then I didn't really want to let this out, but I think I'm going to regardless, because it's going to be easy to spot. I'm going to go all-wheel drive. So that's pretty much it for this car. So full mil-spec wiring harness, ECU Masters full Matthias kit, and then all-wheel drive, I think FCS racing, and then I'm going to have BPA Auto Sports build my turbo kit. So it's going to be a lot of custom fab, but I'm pretty excited for it. It's going to be a long journey, take a couple years, I think. So be a slow process for you guys to watch. However, I think it'll be worth it in the end. necessarily this vehicle specifically, but that engine on the right in this car, I guess. So that engine on the right came from a 1991 Nissan 300ZX that Dad had, and these are twin turbo. He had that car when I was 8 years old, and then he had a bunch of trouble with it. It was, I don't even remember how many problems it's had and how many times we pulled it out, but it's had number 5 rod failure, number 3 rod failure. The driver's side turbocharger came apart. I mean, it's just been crazy wild stuff. So he ended up pulling that engine and putting it on the shelf on the wall next to the car and just selling the car off with a junkyard engine in it, which is still running. We know the guy that owns it. It's in Georgia. It's a beautiful car, and it still runs great with a junkyard dog in it. So that engine there, when we put it in this car, had 37,000 miles on it and had blown up like 7 times, if I remember correctly. It was either 5 or 7. So Braden and I went to Wyotech. That's where we went to college. So we got into a high performance powertrain class, and we took that engine and we rebuilt it together. And it ran great, except when we got back, it was just reaching for things to break. So put it in the car, and I think it was like 2,000 miles later, the timing tensioner pulley, the stud that holds it in, it might be a bolt on that one, but regardless, it broke, and it dropped the timing belt, and it bent all the exhaust valves. So that's pretty frustrating. So we pulled it out, fixed all the valves, placed the head gaskets, fixed a couple other things on it. Then put it back in the car. I mean, this thing has a new crank, new rods, new bearings, the whole bottom end, everything but pistons is new in that engine, and it's smoke number 5 again. So I think there's an oiling issue in that engine somewhere, and the one on the left has the same problem. It's knocking like crazy. It sounds like somebody's inside the engine block with an air hammer just beating on it. So those engines are out. We're done with them. I might rebuild one of them if I can figure out what the root cause of the issue is and put it in a different car. But this car is going to get yet another junkyard engine. So between 2 cars, we've had 4 engines. So the plan for this car now is, while the engine's out, we're going to simplify a lot of things. There's just weird parts of the engine harness that go to things that aren't even near where the connector is. So with all the wiring that I do, I'm going to clean up a lot of this wiring. I'm going to try to figure out if I can put a mil-spec connector here, because you can't get this engine harness out of the car once the dash is installed. Anybody that has a Z knows this trouble, and it sucks. So I'm going to try to put a mil-spec connector here that we can just rotate, pull off, and then the engine harness is out of the engine. Which, this part right here is also a disaster because it has to go behind the brake lines. So I'm probably going to end up having to build a custom harness that branches up to the engine through this area here rather than going through there. I don't know. But engine's out right now, and we're fixing random leaks, like the steering rack's leaking everywhere. I mean, the engine was leaking all over the place. I mean, these things are just sponges. All they do is leak everywhere. So we're going to clean up a bunch of that stuff, and I'll document a lot of what we do. Dad does a lot of some of it while I'm gone. Like, he's already replaced power steering inlet or pressure hose. He's replaced this battery cable. So there's been a lot of things he's done while I'm not here. So I can't guarantee that everything in this car will be documented, but the Civic I can. So goal for this car, we already put bigger intercoolers on it. So we stepped up from the factory intercoolers, which are these tiny little guys back here. So this is the driver's side, but these are quite a step up. They're an inch taller and then twice as thick, and I think a half an inch wider. So they hold quite a bit more volume. So those are just little upgrades we've made so far, but we've got a little bit more to do. I'm going to put a boost controller on it. We've already got a Z1 computer, so we can run a little bit more pressure. I think we can run up to 14 is like the max, so we'll probably run 10 to 11 pounds, see how that goes. Then from there, just put it back together, and this will be Dad's kind of runabout car. It's not going to be anything race car, but I might try to sneak some slicks on it and take it to the track if he goes out of town. Maybe. So we'll see how it does there, see if I can make that happen or talk him into it. But yeah, this has been